All right, so last time we talked about what money is. Now we want to talk about exchanging, how to exchange actually, transacting. There is no limit imposed on gain or loss. That means religiously you can acquire any amount of gain you want that you're able to. Any amount of gain you can bargain is lawful. There's no cap on prices. Our sheikh says whoever puts a cap on prices, meaning he deems it forbidden to make a certain amount of profit, that's kufr, because it's against what's known in the religion and the evidence in the religion. There's no valid saying about there being any cap on prices. The Messenger of Allah refused to put caps on prices. They asked him to, and he refused. So any amount of gain you want, any amount of loss you want is lawful for you, without lying, cheating, or sinning. So then what makes what we do different from capitalism? Capitalism is a system of cheating. Capitalism is a cutthroat way of dealing. It's not just simply honestly getting a profit. It's not doing an honest bargain and getting a profit from honest bargaining. And saying that capitalism is open market, a mere open market, that's not true. Because if it were a mere open market, then they wouldn't impose copyright and patents that prevent you from making money. And they wouldn't break up monopolies, because simply, if you have the best business in any industry and you beat out all your competition, and then you rose and there's no one who can compete with you, and you cornered the market, then what they're going to do, they're going to come in and break up your company. You say, you've become too powerful now, we must break up your company. That's not an open market. That's tyranny and other things. So not to go far there, but just a few small things. Islamic system is fair, and it does allow you to make massive amounts of profit with no cap, but without cheating, without lying, without sinning, without being unjust to people. Except in sales that are subject to usury. Sales that are subject to usury, riba. You can't get any amount of profit you want in these sales. Those are limited. We're talking about here selling gold for gold, or silver for silver, or food for the same type of food. These cases that I mentioned to you in particular. Selling gold for gold, you cannot make any amount of profit you want, because you have to sell for the same weight. That's it. And same thing, silver for silver, and selling food for the same type of food. There's other cases of riba, but these are the cases where you cannot get any amount of profit. This is the religious restriction on profit. Gold for gold. You can sell as much gold as you want, but if you're selling it for gold, then it has to be for the same measure. There's where the religious restriction is. And silver for silver, and food for food, same type of food. Food for the same type of food, not food for different food. Then, as we're going to repeat, inshallah, you're selling gold for gold, then you need to sell the same weight on both sides. Silver for silver has to be equal weight on both sides. Food for the same type of food has to be equal measure on both sides. But selling gold for silver, now you can make any amount of profit you want. Or food for a different kind of food, like corn for rice, now you can make any amount of profit you want. But when it's gold for gold, or silver for silver, or food for the same kind of food, then you cannot make any amount of profit you want, or loss you want. And there's no minimum for a dowry, and there's no maximum for a dowry when you marry a woman. That's the Shafi'i school, not the Hanafi school. That's the Shafi'i school. In the Shafi'i school, there's no minimum or maximum for the dowry. The Hanafi school has a minimum. And by marrying, one gains the right to sexual enjoyment, the man. he gains the right to sexual enjoyment, and she gains the right to a dowry, and obligatory support depends on her obligatory compliance. So that's the deal in the marriage. It's important to understand what the actual deal is when it comes to a marriage, because marriage is a deal. The man gains the right to sexual enjoyment. Yani, he gains the access to her body, to enjoy her body whenever it's lawful for him to do so, whenever it's permissible. Or Yani, when we say to enjoy her body, means even if he just wants her to sit with him. Like he's watching the game, he says, come, I want to enjoy the game and enjoy my wife, sit here with me. And then what does she gain? She gains the right to a dowry, and her obligatory support that she deserves depends on her obligatory compliance. It means as long as she makes herself available to her husband, she deserves to be supported by him. Lodging, clothing, food, and some miscellaneous items. Now, when it comes to exchanging, as we said, you have some scenarios, just logically speaking or rationally speaking. What are your options here? Because you have two parties involved. So your options mentally are that both of them exchange together, or one of them exchanges now and the other does not, or neither of them exchange at the time. Those are your three options. So then it's important to know the religious judgments for these. What's the case when it comes to exchanging on the spot? Are there times when it's obligatory? Are there times when it's not obligatory? What's the case when it comes to neither party exchanging on the spot? Is it possible to be valid? And what's the case when only one party hands over his side and the other party does not do it yet? Is it valid? Is it possible? So we want to cover those and see. It is generally valid to exchange a specific seen item for another on the spot or with delay. On the spot or with delay. How's that? Meaning, we're talking here about a regular sale. So let's say you're selling a computer and I have cash money. So is there a way that neither of us could exchange? Yeah, there is a way. Like, meaning we're going to have to eventually exchange, of course, because it's a sale. But I'm talking about in the session. Yeah, there's a way. Like if I said to you, sell me this computer for such and such amount. And you said, I accept. So that means it's my computer now and I owe you that amount. The sale is done. Yani, the contract, is done. And now I might just leave without taking in the computer and without giving you the money. But we still did the sale. It's valid. Even though we did an exchange right there. So then that means when I decide I want to pick it up, I'm going to come back later and say, yeah, let me get my computer that I bought from you. Or you're going to come to me and say, let me get that money that you owe me. Or I'm going to come to you and say, here's the money I owe you, even if I still didn't take the computer. Or you're going to come to me and say, here's the computer, even if you still didn't take the money. It's all valid. All of that's valid. Because in this sale, there's nothing that demands of us that we exchange immediately. So we could do it now or we could do it later. As long as we did the actual wording of the contract validly, then that's enough. And sometimes one side must pay up front while the other must deliver later. Like the advanced payment sale that we're going to call Salam, or that is called Salam. The Salam sale or Salaf sale. Advanced payment. According to those who mandate upfront payment and invalidate immediate delivery. So this Salam sale that I'm translating as advanced payment sale. Some scholars said the way it has to work is that you pay now and you must get your delivery later. They're basically saying this is the function of the sale. This is the way the sale works. It's the type of sale in which you're going to pay now and you're going to get your delivery later. But as Shafi'i he doesn't completely agree with that, rahimahullah. Ash-Shafi'i says that for the salam sale, you do have to pay up front. That part's true. But you don't have to mention a delay. According to Ash-Shafi'i, you don't have to delay it. So they are agreeing that you got to pay up front for this type of sale. But Ash-Shafi'i doesn't agree that you have to name the later date. So what Ash-Shafi'i is saying is, you can do the salam sale, pay up front, don't mention any time of delivery, and if it is just delivered immediately, it's valid. The others are saying you're going to pay up front and you need to say when you're going to get it delivered later. And when I say delivery here, that means, or you can pick it up too. It's not a condition for a salam sale that he comes to you. It could be that you guys have a rendezvous, so you're going to meet him and pick it up. Now, according to Ash-Shafi'i, if you do a salam sale and you don't say when it's due, then the delivery is due upon request, if the seller is able. Like a dowry. Salam sale is like a dowry, meaning you marry a woman and you say, all right, what you want for your dowry? And she says, I want $1,000. You say, okay, that's cool, I can handle that. And you don't agree when it's due, and then you marry her for a dowry of $1,000. That's valid. So then when is it due? Whenever she asks for it, if you're able. And that's the same thing when it comes to a salary, religious judgment for a salary. You hire a person to work for you. So now, meaning you say, okay, I hire you, I'll pay you $1,000 to paint this wall with this paint. And he says, I accept. Okay. So now, but you didn't mention in the contract when you're going to pay him. And you didn't mention in the contract when he's going to work. You just mentioned the work and the payment. So when do you have to pay him? When he asks you for it. Since you didn't agree to any particular time. That means even if he didn't work yet. That's how it goes. And same thing. When does he have to work? When you ask him to. Even if you didn't pay him yet. Ash-Shafi'i is saying, this is how the salam is. You pay up front, you have to pay up front, but you don't have to say when it's due. And then if you don't say when it's due, it'll just be due when the person asks for it if you're able. Also, self-management, which that's, I mean by what would be called independent contracting. In other words, hiring an agency requires upfront payment. And again, what does it mean to hire an agency? It means you're not hiring anyone in particular to do the job. You're hiring for the job to get done. So it doesn't matter who the worker is. That's not integral to the deal. So in this type of deal, when you hire an agency, or in other words, if you hire a self-managed person, when you hire a person who manages himself, he manages his own business, then you have to pay up front. And what am I avoiding here? Like we talked about before, I'm avoiding saying he works for himself, because we want to say that you work for whoever pays you. So if you don't pay yourself, then you don't work for yourself. That's the terminology I'm using here. You work for whoever pays you. So if you don't pay yourself, you don't work for yourself. And it doesn't make sense to pay yourself anyway. But you can manage yourself. That's possible. Manage yourself means you could be a person who cannot be put under a manager. You might say, no, I don't work this way. You can hire me to do this job, but you cannot hire me to work under your supervisor. So hiring an agency or hiring a self-managed person requires upfront payment. It's the same thing. Those two are the same thing. I'm just saying different words. Because when I say agency, that might give you the impression that they got telephones and business and workers. And no, you could be the agency. It's just you. You are the agency. So if someone hires your agency and you don't have any workers under you, then it means that he just hired you to get the job done. So that's what you got to do. So if you got to manage to go run up into projects and get some guys, or go run out to in front of Home Depot, get some Mexicans and tell them, come here, I got a job for you, then that's your business. Or run to the masjid and get a couple brothers and say, listen, guys, I got a job. Brothers, That's your business. But you have to pay up front as the hirer. The one who's hiring here has to pay up front. Because if you don't pay up front here, then it's going to be a debt for a debt. Because hiring an agency is equivalent to paying for a debt. Hiring an agency is equivalent to paying for a debt. So since you're paying for a debt, then you have to pay up front. You cannot pay for a debt with a debt. Furthermore, when you do hire this agency, and likewise, if you do the Selim contract and you advance the payment for a delivery later, this payment does not have to be used to fulfill your order. You don't say to him, I paid you the money, why didn't you use it to fill the order? Why didn't you use it to take care of what I hired your agency for? No, that's salary. Now it's his business to get it done however he's going to do it. And a check is not an upfront payment, because a check is basically a note that needs to be given to an authorized person. So it's not an upfront payment. A check is like you wrote on a piece of paper, "Oh, authorized person of mine who has control of my money, who has access to my money, give this guy who's coming to you with this note that I wrote this amount of money." So then the guy comes and gives you the note, and then you read it and you say, okay, hold on. And then you get the money for the one who authorized you to act on his behalf. That's what a check is. And sometimes exchange itself is forbidden altogether, like a debt for a debt. I just gave you an example of a debt for a debt. Hiring an agency without paying them up front, that's a debt for a debt. That's invalid. And another example of a debt for a debt is like to say to someone, Fulan owes me $100. I will sell you his debt so that he can owe you $100. I'll sell it to you for $75. You pay me $75 and I'll sell you Fulan's debt of $100. That's a $25 profit for you. And you can even pay me later. So what was that? It's a debt for a debt. And also, you cannot exchange meat for animals. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam forbade exchanging meat for animals, even if it's, whether it's the same kind or not. Cow meat for cows or anything else. Horse meat for cows. Sheep meat for cows. Doesn't matter. Chicken meat for cows. You cannot exchange meat for animals. And animals are not food, by the way. When we say animal like that, it means it's alive. When you have meat, you're not going to call the mere meat an animal. When you go to the meat store, you don't say, what kind of animals do you have here? You say, what kind of meat do you have here? When you say animal, means it's alive. And animals are not food. And sometimes all delay is forbidden. That means your only option is to exchange on the spot. Both sides, exchange on the spot. That's when you're dealing with gold, silver, and food. So gold for gold or silver, you have to exchange at the same time. Silver for silver or gold, you have to exchange at the same time. Food for food, whether it's one type, whether it's the same type on both sides or another type, you have to exchange at the same time. As for gold for food or silver for food, you can delay here. There's no riba there. And that leads us to our next section for riba sales. But I want to stop here so that we can start riba sales from the top.